Hello, Calvary Christian Fellowship, and welcome to our third installment, the third chapter of our stories, an archive of different people and places here in our ministry that we've watched over the years who have embraced challenges, who have taken on callings in their lives. And today, as we talk to the people that you are looking at right now, each one of them has embraced the blessing of taking care and being part of the lives of foster children in their lives that God has brought to them. And I just want to tell you, when we do these interviews and whatnot, I'm always interested in the story. I'm always fascinated by what God has done in a life to bring this person to make it through the affliction, as in Allie's story, which was our first story, or what would compel somebody to go across the globe like the Fares who are in Germany. And today, we're talking about people who have opened their home. They have embraced mission by bringing these fatherless, those that are orphans, those that are part of the foster care system, those that are in kind of in flux in their family life. They have opened their homes. They have allowed their arms to be the arms of the Lord. And it is just such a privilege and honor. Many people do not think of that as a mission, but I know the Lord's heart is for it. And so we're so excited. I want to thank you guys for being part of this stories compilation that we've been doing. Thank you guys for taking the time. I want to give you guys a moment to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what your connection to foster care and adoption has been. Anyone can go. Just feel free. Anybody. I'll call on April first. Let's do that.
April first. Okay. I'm April, and Ed went to get baby. We have a 7-month-old right now. He is number 22 children that we've had in our home. I taught K1 for many years, and we've always loved kids. And so I decided to give back to our community and love on these little babies.
Yeah, wonderful. Prajna?
I'm Prajna. And David is watching our 2-year-old twins right now that we just adopted last month from foster care. So we're our only foster children. We went in with the intention to adopt. About 4 years ago, we started the process. And in just a couple days, the boys will have been with us 2 years. We're coming up on our anniversary of bringing them home.
Oh, cool.
And, so yeah, we have 6 other children, and they were all growing up. And when I started thinking about what I wanted to do after they all graduated, I just wanted to be mom again. So I did.
Very cool. And then now we've got Josh and Erica. They're technically in the same house, but 2 different
No,
Zooms.
we're not.
Oh, you're not. Oh, okay. They do live in the same house.
Way across town in Redlands.
Oh, okay. There we go. Josh and Erica, introduce yourselves.
I'm Josh Brown. My wife Erica. We have just completed the adoption of our daughter Maria, and it took maybe 18 months. Prior to that, we had started the process of fostering about a year prior to that, and have been doing this. Maria is the second child that we have had worked with. I don't what do you call it? But yeah, she's the second child that we've got.
Yeah. Erica, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. Just let's see. We have our 15-year-old. Just so that everyone knows, we have a 15-year-old that's our biological son, and we waited a long time to get our little girl. So yeah, she's 18 months in just a couple days.
Yeah. And again, congratulations to the Fox family, the Brown family. Wonderful. What an awesome privilege to know that about you guys, and to have watched the whole story and to have seen the ups and downs of it. It's really been something to watch. But I asked you guys questions, and I had sent these out when we were going to do this interview some time ago. But not everybody, as I said in the introduction, not everybody sees this as an issue. They don't know about this. They're unaware of foster care. Maybe they've heard about it, but it's some far off, distant kind of thing. What was kind of your first involvement or your first notice of this? How were you first introduced to foster care and the possibility of opening your own home in this way?
Well, we adopted our daughter years ago, so we were really aware of and we've had other children in our home in and out, but we haven't dealt exactly with the system. Now we're dealing with the system, and so we're licensed through the county and through we're with Child Help, and so I've always been aware of it, mainly because I was a teacher of young children. So, we've seen the different issues that have come up, and I've always had a heart for them. So we decided after retirement for a while that, hey, it's time to take more into our home. So we did that.
Mm-hmm. Prajna, first experience?
I actually had a foster sister when I was in preschool, and she was with us until I was about 6 years old. We were maybe a year apart, and I just adored her. And it was really hard for me when she left. At the time, her mom was incarcerated, and I didn't know any of that at the time. But I did get to get reunited with her, like to go visit her family once she went back home. But it was really hard. So I actually was pretty much against doing any foster care, because for me as a kid, that was just, I wasn't really prepared to lose somebody I was so close to. There wasn't any kind of teaching for foster parents on how to prepare your other children for having foster kids go back home. So I was like dead set against it. I would never do that to my own kids, because it was just something really hard for me. But then we started, I was amazed just how many people we knew who were foster parents. We just kept running into them. It was one of those like definite God things where it had been going on for like 5 years before one day we just went, hey, what would you think about foster care? Like it was our idea or something. But we had just, watched a lot of friends open their homes up and see these kids go from just such hard places to loving homes and growing so much that we just thought like, oh, maybe this is an avenue that we would be open to, with the right preparation with our other kids. And then when we talked to them, they were like, yeah, we should do this. They were totally on board, while we were still like, well, I don't know. Our other kids were just like, you should do this. So it took a long time for God to get me there. But, once he did, we just jumped right in.
Yeah. Josh, Erica?
Well, I have both my grandmothers. My maternal grandmother adopted a young man, and it wasn't through any system. It was through like family friend. So I had an adopted uncle growing up, and then my other grandmother fostered 2 boys, and they're the same age that I am. And so to know that there was a need, it just had always kind of been there. But I grew up an only child and quasi only child, and never really, I didn't know. Only children kind of grow up selfish. We don't know there's other people that exist.
Yeah, so true.
So it was known, but it was not ever something part of my life. And then when we came to CCF, meeting Krista and Elliot and spending time with them and watching these kids every week, the kids that they've adopted now, watching them just blossom into amazing little human beings, to know that someone can overcome that with just tons of love. That was really inspiring to Josh and I. And so, yeah, that was when the need was made known to us.
Very cool. Josh, how about you?
You know, for me, Andrew was the only child that we were able to have. And so when we started thinking about this, it was not something that I'd ever given much consideration to. I never grew up around any foster kids or anyone who was adopted that I was aware of. So it was really a net new concept for me. But seeing April and Ed and Prajna and David and the Faux, it made an abstract concept seem real and doable. And so there was the aspect of it like, oh, you're doing a good thing, but really we were kind of approaching it from the perspective of like to have more kids, right? And so we weren't sure if the Lord was in this or not. And so we decided to just do the paperwork, right? And see what happens. Kind of like what they say, when you can't choose, decide if you're going to go on a mission or not, right? Just sign up and see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And I had no idea what was going to come of it, if it was going to work out or not. But now we've got Maria, and the biggest realization is thinking like it's impossible for me to think that she would be anywhere else but with us. Like I can't imagine that. And that was kind of a big realization for me. So I've enjoyed it. Maria's great, very strong-willed and spirited, and we've just got the normal parenting things that come along, normal challenges. But I don't think that this is something that is any greater or less than being a parent in general. I mean, these are kids that need the families, but from my perspective, I want to be a dad.
Yeah. So true. Yeah. There's really no division scripturally between, a stepmom, stepdad, or those type of divisions that we have today, foster dad, foster mom, adoptive mom or adoptive dad or whatever it might be. There's just people that are in a life that are fulfilling a role. And like you said, you are a father to Maria as much as you are to Andrew. Of course, that's a wonderful, wonderful point you make there, Josh. And truly, I mean, what I love about this, much of what I'm hearing right now, because, when I asked you the question about pursuing a calling, I guess it should have been more obvious to me, but you guys had tremendous influence on each other. It was like this circular thing that was going around. Prajna said it was the Faux, or Erica, you said the Faux, and you guys said Prajna, and obviously you guys watching April and Ed. And by the way, we want to thank David and Ed right now for taking care of the kids off camera in the background. Thank you guys for taking the hit on this one. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know what you put in the water, Frank, for those couple of years. But,
yeah. But it's so neat how in the body of Christ you watch one person take something and make it flesh. It goes from the abstract, like you said, Josh, and it becomes something real and tangible. And what you said a second ago, you just started a road and you sort of thought, and this is very consistent with what we saw in our last interview of the Faux, how they took steps, and little bit by little bit taking a step toward Germany and buying tickets in faith and the other types of things that they went forward, not knowing what was coming next, but taking the next step. That was just really,
Frank,
really something. Yes, ma'am.
part of this too is that we think it's just for the children, but it's a huge influence on the parents, because a lot of the times that we have parent visitation, that we do the that we sit there and observe them. And that's usually about 4 hours a week, which is a long time for the parents, especially if the baby's real little. Then the mom just holds it and the baby goes to sleep and they want to talk. They really want to talk. And so the ministry doesn't just stop at the kids. And a lot of people think, oh, it's just the kids, but it really doesn't. It outreaches your social workers. It outreaches the community.
Sure.
It outreaches a lot with the moms. We've gotten close to, we still have relationships with some of the moms still. We've had a couple that have come to know the Lord because of it, because I'm very open with my faith. When we first meet the social worker, when we get a new child, the social worker is there for the first visit and the parent. And I'm very open, saying that we are believers and that we love Jesus and that we are going to be praying for you. And we do pray for them. And all the moms that I've ever talked to, none of them have said, don't pray. They're always, thank you, very kind. And the social workers, you can tell the ones that know Jesus because they're very open, and the ones that don't, you can feel the walls. So, but that's because you're not supposed to bring that up, but we do. And we've never been told not to say that at all. They've been very nice about it, very gracious about the social workers. So it's a whole ministry, not just to the kids. It's a whole ministry.
Absolutely.
A lot of other people that are involved in this. It's, you've got lawyers, you've got all sorts of different people that I really didn't think through that God is really blessed to be able to minister to them. So it's an avenue that we don't usually think about. And we went into it with everybody, and we meet a lot of people, and I encourage people to be fostering because it's such a huge need. And they say, oh, I never could do that. I never could do that. How can you ever give the baby back or give them away, kind of thing? And to me, it's not about the baby. It's about, and not about it's not about my feelings. It's about helping the child. Even if it's for a few months, even if it's a few days, even that child has had some love and security, and we can pray for them. We've got a list of all our children that we've ever had on our fridge, and we get to pray for every one of them. So I'm part of a privilege that is a different avenue of this whole foster system.
That's absolutely true. The way this thing reaches out in areas, and even for, perhaps if I could say this way, April, I know along the lines of the organization you guys foster through, there's a lot of trust that's been built there, a lot of credibility that's come back because of your guys' solid witness in the community and whatnot. And there is such a tremendous, and we never know how our faith and the actions that our faith produces is going to touch other people in our lives. And it's very much worth the struggles and the difficulties, which I'm about to ask you now about. This is obviously, it's almost easy to say this is something that if you have the ability and the heart for this is a no-brainer. If you have the home and you have the willingness to do it, to go through whatever it might be to get yourself into a position to help and be part of this, it's almost a no-brainer to say we should all be doing something along these lines, right?
We want to make sure it's God's will.
Yeah, it's God's will, right?
God's will and God's calling, because it's hard. It's hard when those little ones leave. You fall in love with every one of them, and I cry for every single one of them, at least, except for one. One I didn't cry for, but every other one I cried for. Remember that little guy? Even Anna remembers that little guy.
Yeah, I remember
him. It's been, 3 years or 4 years?
Yeah, he was a challenge.
He was a real challenge, yes. But
that's
otherwise,
what I want to ask, though, is that what were the challenges, the things that you guys, if you were to look back on it, because, I mean, again, it seems like such an easy thing to say yes to, but the call of God in anyone's life doesn't equal ease.
No.
It doesn't mean easiness. What kind of things did you guys have to get through to get to where you are today?
Learning how to hold your breath when you change diapers.
Yeah, said from the man off the camera. That's Ed over there.
The camera, yes. Who's the diaper changer?
It's not just to get a child, but there is so much more. Like April was saying, there's a layer. There are so many layers. But that's where the challenge comes from, I think. And then the phone call when they have to go back home.
Oh gosh, that's tough. It's tough, huh, Erica?
Yeah, that is hard. That is hard. And only getting a little bit of time with them. You don't get a whole bunch of time with them when you're told that they're going to go home. And then with Maria, just always that constant, like, is someone going to call? and claim this little baby you've had since day 2. So, because it's, at 8 months, 9 months, I'm with this baby's a part of me.
Yeah.
But the reward of, especially, I'm just with Maria, it far outweighs any challenge. We would go to hell and back for that little girl. We'd do it again. Just, we just do it again. And yeah, that was our challenge.
That is one of the rewarding things, is to see these moms that come in, because all the babies that we have, except for one that we don't know the background, they're all exposed to drugs. The moms are struggling with different issues, and God has given us the grace to not judge them. So I think and I know it's God's grace, totally, that I don't feel any judgment for them. But it's neat. They come in, usually when you first meet them, they're stringy hair, they're, not real clean, and they're skinny, and to see them grow and get help, some of them to grow and get healthy, and it's it's neat. It's rewarding to see them, and they have to fight hard to get their kids back. It usually takes about a year for them to get their babies back if they've been taken away, and they take them away at birth if they're exposed at all. So it's been that is a challenge. So
yeah,
Prajna with adoption too with Sarah. So with our daughter.
Prajna, what kind of challenges do you think you would underscore here?
Well, I mean, we ran into challenges just even getting licensed right at the beginning. The county is very understaffed and overworked, and most of us are kind of brought up to just be polite, and you don't want to be known as the annoying person who keeps calling. And I mean, we had lost paperwork. We had a worker who didn't like that I was a stay-at-home mom, so she would not work with us doing our paperwork. I mean, we ran into a lot of roadblocks at the time that, where I would be like, okay, God, I'm going to call this number one more time, and if nobody answers, then this is it. We constantly were questioning ourselves, are we really doing God's will, or do I just really love my friend's kids, and want one of my own, is this really what God is calling us to? And so there were so many little roadblocks where I would be like, okay, God, if nobody answers, then I'm going to take this as a closed door. And that was so hard because I wanted it so much. So to be able to honestly say, okay, I will stop pursuing this if nothing happens after this. And invariably, every time that happened, for some reason, a supervisor would be standing next to the phone of the person I was trying to reach, and they would get us an appointment the next day that we'd been trying to get for 6 months. That it just, everything, I think that there were so many times I just wanted to quit in just trying to get to the placement point where, and I just couldn't, God just wouldn't let me. Every time I'd be like, this is too hard. I can't do this anymore. I just, my heart would not let it go. That's how I knew that was what God was calling me to do this, even though it was something I really, really wanted. Yeah. I think God doesn't always call us to things that we don't want to do. Sometimes he calls us to things that we want, and that can be hard though in that time to know how hard do I push on this? Am I pushing against God and trying to open a door that's been closed? So so that as a Christian, that was a real trial of faith there, I think, because on the one hand you're like, well, I'll just let God take care of it, but on the other hand, God's like, hey, put your boots on and go do some work. And so trying to find that balance. Yeah. And you could see, looking back now, when we went into this, we wanted a newborn baby girl because I had all these boys and I was sick of boys, and I just want a little baby girl, and then things went on, and our social worker would you consider a boy? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Will not consider a boy. And then prayed about it and called back, okay, we'll consider a boy. And that fell through, and having to kind of grieve through that, like, God, why did you open this door? And then 3 weeks later, we get a text from our worker, hey, so I know you said you'd be okay with a boy. Will you take twin boys? And I had felt like I totally, I've got 6 kids. I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I can handle this. The twin boy thing, I'm like, this is God's way of showing me that I cannot handle this.
Yeah.
And all of those delays, I really just believe God was working on my heart to, even though I had a heart to adopt, that he wanted me to go beyond what I thought I could handle.
Mm.
And, bringing home 5-month-old twin boys was way, way more than I could handle. And the situations that, with being an adoptive parent, it's a little different than being a straight foster. When you go to meet the kids, you get a full disclosure, which is an entire family history and everything those parents have been through, everything that's happened to those kids. And you just go into it with this heaviness of knowing these intimate details about these parents that are not going to get their kids back. So that is a little bit of a different heartbreak than being a foster, where you're going to give them back, like going to visitations, knowing that this is going to be the last time that this mom sees her kids. And that it is really, really heartbreaking, when their history, and that was something I did not expect about the emotional attachment that I would have to, what my kids, but also to their biological family. And for my boys, it's a very large family that they came from, all with issues. And so that's just, it's still something 2 years later, it's still something I struggle with. Just, knowing that they are not one of the success stories that April gets to have, where we did watch, a lot of her kids get to go, a lot of the moms, have these success stories. And it's heartbreaking when there is not a success story like that. Even though we wanted to adopt as human beings who love Jesus and love his creation, it's heartbreaking to watch somebody be in that situation. And you can't really prepare yourself for that. You just have to.
Yeah.
Now, Prajna and David are they've gone through State County, and we go through, Child Help USA, and that's called a private Faux Adopt organization, and they're called FFAs. And so they do a lot of preparing, a lot of classes. You have to take continuing classes, but they do a lot of classes, and they do address the issues that Prajna was talking about. County doesn't address it as much, because these guys are a lot more involved with us as the foster parent or adoptive parent compared to what county does. So it's a little bit different for her situation, to where if you go with an FFA, which I encourage. So, because they do train you a lot more.
And the county, like Prajna was saying, Prajna, you had mentioned that they're very understaffed, and obviously we live in the largest county in the United States.
Yes.
So, I can only imagine what kind of stretched thin resources they might all have there.
Yes.
Along these lines, because again, the struggle and the things that you've seen, so the tendrils that go out, obviously, between you and the children, which we've talked about, you and the other families and the related groups of people that are around the agencies. But what has the Lord taught you about himself by being in the position that you have agreed by obedience to be in? What did he teach you about him, about his heart, as you have entered into this relationship along these lines? Josh, how about you first?
Well, I'll tell you, it's something to realize that this is, we were adopted to become Christ's, right? So before we became believers, we were just as fatherless as any of these other kids.
Mm.
And so the parallel between the relationship that we have with these children now versus them not having that relationship, it's pretty striking to feel a connection to them that is similar to the, to the extent that we're able to feel it.
Yeah.
We were adopted
Yeah.
to become part of Christ.
Okay.
No different than these kids that are on this earth that are just searching for, people to be parents to them.
Mm. How about you guys, ladies?
I've learned that God's a flexible God. You can't put him in a spot that you think this is going to happen and it doesn't. That serving God does not mean that it's easy. It's not an easy path at all. God says it's going to hurt. We associate too with, God hurts when we sin so much. And we see the ugly side of society by this, some of the situations. And I know it hurts God's heart and it hurts our heart. And so a big part to me is like, you gotta be flexible.
Ladies?
You never know.
I don't want to
Prajna?
go. I don't want to sound prosperity or anything like that. So please remove that from what I'm about to say. But the Lord really does give the desires of our heart if we pray and seek him. 14 years of infertility, and the Lord blessed us with this beautiful baby girl. He never stops to amaze me. I mean, beside, Josh and I, we've been married going on 16 years, and it hasn't been easy. But that he let us go through things to bring us and give us this. It is remarkable. It's amazing. He truly does just make you wait. Just wait and be patient, and he will give you the desires of your heart.
Oh, you're killing me, Erica. It's
Sorry.
getting all smoky up in here. Getting all smoky up in here.
I'm
I'll tell you what, we need a break. No.
And to do this, Frank, you got to be tough.
I know, man. I'm almost losing it over here. I've known Erica since she was a wee youth back in the day, so that was very touching. Thank you for being vulnerable that way.
We look at it too from our daughter's 35. Sarah's 30, I think, that we've adopted, or 34, one of the two. And so I can look at it years later, where now, I mean, we talk to each other every day. So close, so close. So she worked on her testimony for a while, but now, I mean, it's just it's really neat. And so I get to see what Erica's going to experience later on in years with her little girl.
Sure.
And, I mean, she's no different than my other kids, I tell you.
Yeah, wonderful. Prajna, how about you? What has the Lord taught you about himself through this whole process?
Yeah, and so much. Probably one, like an interesting thing for me is, I did not grow up in a Christian home. I could have, if I not had people that God put in my life, I could have easily been my twins' bio mom. The similarities in what we experienced in life were uncanny. Reading her story was so similar to my childhood and what I went through, except that people had intervened in my life where people had not intervened in hers. And it just made me just really see that, one person really can make a difference. And that God, puts us in these places where we think oh, I want to do something big for God. That's what I used to say. As soon as my kids are grown, I'll go do something big for God, because I didn't see that just raising my kids to be loved and know God was the biggest thing that I could do.
Mm.
And and bringing these boys home, we had to learn how to take care of babies that had not been nurtured. And we brought them home, and for the first year, they ate every 2 hours around the clock, bottles around every 2 hours. And, and I was happy to do it. I was exhausted. It was hard work, but I knew that's what they needed. And I remember sitting in the middle of the night and thinking, all of a sudden, all the times that I asked, God to help me, and think, well, he doesn't really want to be bothered with me, and just, I'd be holding those little babies in the middle of the night, totally sleep deprived. And I just realized just how much God loves us.
Mm.
That whatever I felt for these babies was nothing.
Mm.
And sorry, I'm a crier.
Okay. It's okay, just so long as it doesn't get over here.
That's mandatory. We all cry.
Not growing up with a father, I never really understood God as a parent until I brought these boys home. Even with my own kids, it was different. But having these babies, working so hard for them and being happy to do it, no matter how hard it was, just really made me appreciate the character of God as a father in a way that I had never understood before. So that was probably one of the biggest things for me. So
That's beautiful, really. Last thing, and let's play a little game with this one. Best piece of advice for anybody who's watching this, who's thinking about getting into foster care / adoptive services. Number one piece of advice that you would offer, looking back upon your experience, it's the first thing that you would say when they came to ask you. Now, here's a little trick. If someone else mentions your thing, you have to come up with number two.
Oh.
All right. So what I'm going to say.
Oh, yeah. All right, Josh. Let's start with Josh.
All right. Just go into it. Whatever you think is going to come of it, whatever the outcome is that you're kind of anticipating, just take it and throw it out. You're going to be completely surprised. There's no way to predict. Everybody will ask you what it's like, but each child is independent and unique. And so there is no stereotypical situation that you can just bank on. Everything's going to be uncertain. Plan for the unexpected phone calls. It's all just going to happen, but it'll be worth it if it's meant for you to go down that path. And if it's not, be okay with it. It's okay. There's something else for you.
All right. Erica?
Pray and apply. Pray and apply. And see what happens. Let the Lord shut the door.
Ooh, love it. Prajna?
I would say that, if you're thinking of going into foster care or adoption, before you do that, really take a good inventory of yourself and work on yourself if you need to before you start bringing kids into your home or even going through this process. If you have issues in your marriage or personal issues, those are just going to be amplified as you go through this, because you're going to have to write down your entire life story in your application. There's going to be things on there that, maybe your spouse doesn't know that about you. And do you really want that to come up in front of a room full of social workers? We had a couple surprises. If you do have issues, really take some time, meet with your pastor, meet with a counselor, join a step study group. There's lots of Christian step study groups that can help you with, anger or depression or anxiety. I mean, your anxiety is going to be through the roof, even if you don't struggle with anxiety before you go into this. So
Yeah.
having those tools and working on yourself first is going to be so much easier to do that before you go into this. And while you're going through the process, then when you get kids that, come in your home and you're sleep deprived, they've got issues that maybe might be triggers for you. I do know a lot of adoptive families that, didn't do that ahead of time. And it definitely makes things harder because these kids need you to be the parent who is in control of themselves. And not someone who's going to just be, everything is pushing your button. Of course, things push your buttons. All of us have that. But I think that would be the biggest advice I'd give, because anytime you hear of those horror stories that happen, it's really where something was out of whack before the kids came into the home. And once you're depleted taking care of these kids, it's too draining to stop everything and work on yourself. You still need to, but do it beforehand if you
There
can.
you go.
Save you a lot of heartache and trouble.
Yeah. Amen. Okay, April, you got the real challenging one. You're the last one here.
I'm the last one, huh?
And yeah, there's some good answers there. So
I know, prayer's the biggie. I think get educated, talk to other foster parents, talk to other adoptive parents. They're the ones that we've got the experience. We're the ones that have, been in the trenches with good kids and kids that are more challenging. So get educated on child development. That's a big, big key is, if this kid is thrown out, not fit, there's all sorts of stuff that could be the cause of it. You don't respond to that child the way you respond to your own children that you've raised that have been in a good, stable home. You deal with them a whole different way than you deal with your own kids. So get educated. Talk to these foster parents. Talk to the adoptive families that are around. I mean, we're all over the place. It's amazing how many people have given their lives to this. It's and there's been some the ones that take older kids and stuff. I mean, we used to get the little ones, but boy, those ones that take older ones, they're challenged. But there's some wonderful, wonderful people out there that will give advice and will share their stories, very easily. So get educated. That's a biggie. Talk to those families.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic sets of advice there, people, whoever's watching this. And again, thank you guys so much for being part of this. This has just been such a treat for me to be part of it. Although it got a little smoky up in here for a minute, but thank you guys for being, thank you guys for being a part of this. And I just wanted to, something that Josh said, and I was thinking about this verse in Deuteronomy chapter 10. It says, "For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality nor takes a bribe. He administers justice for the fatherless and the widow, and loves the stranger, giving him food and clothing. Therefore, love the stranger, for you were strangers in Egypt." And I was just thinking about what Josh said a minute ago with regard to what we learned about the Lord through these things. And as I think of the fact that Christ, through his work, has brought us into the family of God, and we were once strangers, lost in a world that we had no power or control over, the lives that are being touched, the out of control and chaos situations that are being that are happening all around us. It's such a joy to think about how the Lord took us and brought us into his family. And so what a wonderful way to end this. Thank you guys again. Lord willing, we'll have another story up fairly soon. But thank you guys for watching and taking part of this. I hope you enjoyed, and maybe the Lord would stir in your heart to be involved in something like this. I pray that you'll have heard that everybody here had just a sense of understanding something. They went forward and they tried and they waited and watched, and look at what God has done. To him be the glory. It's wonderful. So Lord bless you all. and we'll see you next time.
Hey, bye-bye.